expert witness fees and so forth in court litigation later on down the line.
In the back of bulletin number 2, at the end, we have provided you with a list of planners and attorneys who historically have represented the needs and interests of the black community with addresses, phone numbers, and so on, so that you will have those people to refer to. And specifically, when you go to the supervisors, request, right?
Yeah.
Not just recommend, not just suggest, not if you so please, but we request so-and-so, you know, John Jones or whoever, not just someone, you know, so that you have a very specific request in front of them. And keep in mind that it needs to be in writing. Even though you're going to present it personally, you want it in writing so there's a track record for the Justice Department. And you send copies of your correspondence with the supervisors to the Justice Department. And we've also provided you in bulletin number 2 with the name of the person and the address of the person at the Justice Department to whom you should send copies of the correspondence, which is John Tanner, right?
Right.
And we have his address down there, so you can look at bulletin number 2 as sort of being a working tool, because all of what we're going over today is summarized in there, including the model of how to figure all of this out. Although we used Holmes County in that particular issue, the principles are the same.
Now, if I can give an example of what you just asked about, the Mississippi Redistricting Coalition was formed to monitor the reapportionment efforts statewide. And every time we've communicated with the Joint Legislative Reapportionment Committee, we put it in writing. We attended hearings here in Greenville, all around the state, really, from Greenville all the way down to Natchez, down to Brookhaven. We attended hearings saying that they wanted to know what criteria should be used in redistricting. We challenged them as to their process being used, as to blacks not being involved, and then we listed criteria that they should use. Everything we did, we put in writing. One of the things that we demanded was that they hire a black demographer and a black lawyer, and the language we use is critical, with credibility in the black community to assist in developing plans. And that language is key, with credibility in the black community, to save them from going out and getting just anybody off the street. So what did they do? They had a meeting. They had a meeting. But we defined the credibility in the black community. We said we wanted somebody who has a track record in this reapportionment effort on the plaintiff side. So we were limiting it to just a few people. As a compromise, and to tell you how the process worked, the Joint Legislative Reapportionment Committee was meeting in Jackson, and Ed Blackman, being the good politician that he is, had worked the committee ahead of time to make sure that they would get Vic McTeer, and everybody had sort of given their assurance that Vic was going to be the person that they were going to hire. So Vic had gone down to Jackson, and the Joint Legislative Reapportionment Committee was sitting up meeting to consider the demand that we made, to hire the black with credibility in the black community with the track record on this. Ed Blackman sitting there making a motion to hire a person with all these credentials that wouldn't fit nobody else but Vic McTeer. And then all of a sudden, Tommy Wallman from Macomb jumps up, offers a substitute motion to hire Reuben Anderson, and it all passes just like that. And Reuben Anderson did not have credibility in the black community on the reapportionment effort. Reuben is told...
When did that do?
About 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
Reuben called Kirksey. And that was come back right when Reuben had called. Now, before he formally accepted, but Reuben had accepted before he called Kirksey and said, Kirksey, I understand that y'all might not have been satisfied, and I understand that Ed Blackman wasn't satisfied, because Ed Blackman they interviewed Ed right after the process was done, and Ed Blackman said, the black people in Mississippi will not be fooled by the trick that the committee just pulled. So Ed was just laying on the line. And so Reuben called Kirksey so I would not take the position if you and Ed say I shouldn't take it. And Kirksey said, I can give you my answer right now. Hell no, don't take it. That was his answer right then and there on the spot. The next day, Reuben was working. The very next day he was working. And the reason I'm saying that is because the Magnolia Bar had initially urged that we not attack Reuben in the process. And my position was the reapportionment, the coalition had asked that a black person with credibility in the black community on reapportionment be hired. Reuben didn't have any credibility on reapportionment because he called Kirksey, then he called me, and said he want me to help him learn this area. And we don't have but a couple of weeks now to work on coming up with a fair reapportionment plan. He said, Carroll, I'm gonna need your help, show me where make sure we don't be messing up. I'm not getting paid to show him, and it's not my responsibility. And it goes back to the committee. They did not hire a person with credit. Reuben is a fine person. I like Reuben, he's a fine gentleman. But the point being, we demanded that somebody with credibility in the black community on reapportionment. And it's gonna be up to us to speak to that issue. And the Magnolia Bar initially had asked that we not say anything that would reflect on Reuben. So I've had a couple of conferences with the Magnolia Bar leadership.
I think, though, as we talk about this, we should be very clear, and we should put the information out there very clear that, in fact, they have not hired Reuben. They have hired
I was going to explain that.
all-white law firm.
I was going to explain.
Part of which Reuben is a part of. So that's what is actually happening, that they have hired Dunbar Phelps.
Yeah, Phelps Dunbar. It's Phelps Dunbar.
Phelps Dunbar, the law firm, Reuben is a part of it. So in fact,
That's a
they
new
have
job
not.
you just got here.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I was gonna get on to that because I was gonna say the Magnolia Bar asked that we not attack Reuben. So Kirksey and I, we've started attacking Phelps Dunbar, and then Mike Moore's Deputy Attorney General called me in last week for a conference because Kirksey, I represented Kirksey, and 25 other blacks got a class certified over the judicial reapportionment, judicial redistricting, where we were able to get districts drawn, and now we have, I think, 8 black judges elected. And he called me in because Mike Moore was concerned that law firms in Jackson, D.C. had been in contact since last October, and they were pushing the Attorney General to do something to undo the settlement that we had entered into on getting black judges elected, because the Fifth Circuit in September said that Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act did not apply to the election of judges. So that judgment, that settlement that we entered was no good. And Mike Moore was holding off on doing it. And they wanted to know that he wanted to preempt the law firm, this white law firm, who was representing judges and Republicans, who wanted to come in and file a motion to intervene in our suit and undo the settlement that we had entered into. And I said, well, let me talk to some people. I went back, talked to the leadership of the Magnolia Bar, and talked to Kirksey and some others. And I told them what I felt about it is that Mike Moore should not file anything. He should let the law firm go ahead and file. And everybody was in agreement. And after I talked to the Magnolia Bar, I said, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to tell you what the Deputy Attorney General told me. That the law firm was there to file. Just going to file the lawsuit. We're going to intervene in our lawsuit to undo what we've done. Phelps Dunbar. And after I told that to the leadership of the Magnolia Bar, they said, well, the gloves are off. We might as well start exposing Phelps Dunbar and Reuben Anderson. So that's why I'm able to sit here today, or stand here today, and expose what?
As Paul Harvey would say, now for the rest of the Phelps Dunbar, Dunbar.
It's Phelps Dunbar. Dunbar Phelps better.
This has a better ring. Yeah. Phelps Dunbar, in Martindale and Hubble, which is the lawyer's Bible, that's where you find out all about them, as they represent themselves, promote as one of its representative kinds of cases, which means that it is telling the rest of the world, if you have this kind of case and you need a lawyer, look for us, because we do this, right? One of its most representative cases is representing employers in the defense against discrimination claims brought by employees. So in the old question, which side are you on?
And Reuben is a partner in Phelps Dunbar now. And that gets back to your original question about can you request certain people. You need to demand, you need to be specific in your demand. And if they do not choose the people that you demanded, I think the gloves ought to be taken off. Unless that person, unless a black person that they choose has credibility in the black community. If they go out and get somebody you haven't heard of, I think you need to attack it. If they get somebody black who doesn't have credibility, because and you need to make sure that your black elected officials who are on the Board of Supervisors understand that, because they get caught up in the politics of situations, and you might, yeah. So you might demand Henry Kirks. You might demand that they hire Jenna Walls as an attorney to try to get this process through. And as a compromise, they'll throw up some other black, and the black elected officials go along with it.
What they doing here in this county, they've already given the county attorney for the board of supervisors to go ahead and go down there and get everything done by April. And they haven't had no meeting with us and said anything. All we know is what's been said since folks have come on and asked us in the newspaper, television. But direct communication with us, they haven't said anything.
They haven't had a public meeting either.
Hearing anything on it to the community to let them know what they're saying. All the community knows is what's been coming from the news media coming in and trying to speak up with their TV. But as far as our board of supervisors have they meeting, and for the entire Washington County population, it hadn't been done.
And that's where we're going to come up later on down about organizing the community. Owen.
This has obviously much more magnitude. This Phelps Dunbar relationship with politicos in this state, because it affects the future of black people politically in this state for a very long time. Now it escapes me, even though it escapes me, the stance that Magnolia Bar takes in this, see, because there are enough of you all in that mechanism, right, to have whooped up some kind of protest internally. It didn't have to be public, internally.
I agree with
regarding, I sat next to.
I agree with you.
When we went to see Mandela. Okay, I don't know why Reuben was chosen, other than the fact that he's a hand-picked nigga that was put on the Supreme, on the Supreme Court here in the state. That's the only reason, I guess, that's the only justification for him being there, right? And when is it that we cease paying homage? Okay, because that's what it's about. We pay homage to these colored people, right, that have been bought lock, stock, and barrel by white power in this state. I mean, it's all over the country. Obviously, we understand that Mississippi doesn't have the only lock on this strategy. It's employed all over the world, in fact. But, this is 1991, all right? And earlier in your presentation, y'all spoke about the fact that, it's an unwritten law that we don't attack one another no matter how far-ranging, right? Yeah. The ill may be that this black is laying on his own people.
Yeah.
So, I think, I sort of believe, he ain't got too many more years either. He's like me, Reuben. He's a little younger than I am, right? Yeah. But he's done what he's gonna do in this lifetime. Yeah. And all he's gonna do for the rest of his life is cut coupons, right?
Yeah.
At our expense.
At our expense.
At our expense. So, I believe something needs to be said.
Well, I agree with you.
I mean, in the face of what we're faced with, in trying to get more black people representing black people in politics.
Owen, I agree with you,
I
and
don't think we should not let that pass.
when I talked to the leadership of the Magnolia Bar, I gave them an example. As here we are out here in the middle of the ocean. Ship has gone down. 300 people over here, one over here. Here comes the Coast Guard. You're all saying, send the Coast Guard to rescue this one person, let the rest of us drown. Yeah. And we can no longer do that in this state. And I told them, I said, we just can't save one black and let the rest of us drown.
We ain't never chosen to
Right. We just can't do that. And I think the Magnolia Bar is going to take. I think they're going to start taking a position on it, because they said we publicly can do that now. They said we publicly can do it, and so that's one of the things I'm doing here, and I've been doing when I've been speaking because reapportionment is about power. It's about pure and simple. And if we sit on this and be quiet and don't say anything and let them get another bad plan through where we don't get more blacks elected, then we're sunk. We're sunk. The population is shifting such that it's going to be harder in the year 2000 to get black electable districts. So we might, we just can't afford to do that anymore. And at least I encourage them. And it was only after, thank goodness, that the Attorney General's office had informed me that the Phelps Dunbar firm was going to be filing and stuff, and Mike Wallace, who's a partner in that firm, is the one who's supposed to be. Mike Wallace is Reuben Anderson's partner. Mike Wallace was appointed by Reagan to head up and he was a chairman of the National Legal Services Corporation that tried to do away with legal services corporations across the nation. That's the same Mike Wallace. And I'm saying, we just can no longer sit idly by. I mean, it's not a personal attack on Reuben. I'm saying it's not a person, right? And not just a firm, but we're talking about the future of black people. And all we're saying is that Reuben was not the right person for that job.
What I wonder about is your group, when the House refused to meet with the Senate, when Dick was like a shoe-in, the House refused to meet with the Senate in that reapportionment group, that nobody, I didn't see anything about it in the papers or anything else. The next thing I know, Reuben Anderson is the person. At that point, when the House refused to meet with the Senate Apportionment Committee, I mean, it looked like me, the whole thing should have just come loose at the seams at that point. But there was nothing. I mean,
well,
I'm asking, I don't know. When did that happen? After the fact, and I was wondering why.
There's a time and a season for everything.
When did that happen? Well, the House would meet with the Senate on a reapportionment hearing that they were supposed to have, and they didn't meet. The House wouldn't meet because they heard there was going to be a black co-counsel. They didn't want black co-counsel.
But they were there when Reuben was appointed because
that was the second time.
That was the second time.
Right, that was the second time they came back, and then Reuben came out of the bag.
As a compromise candidate. But they were compromised not to get big. Yes, ma'am.
But since most of you are much younger people and done more research than the rest of us who started out in the early 60s, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
On Mississippi politics, it's black people, especially legal people, because we've been for so long pushing because we wanted black attorneys, and up in the desk, we were really hurting. So now, since you young folk can come in, like Gavin Chambers, been doing all this research work and doing all this educating to us in the community, you all still could not find a way to let the folk know that Dunbar and Phelps was that type of bar association, organization, whatever that law firm is, that group was being hired for, that, let the folk know, yeah, he's being hired there, but look, this is the kind of firm it is. You all need to be aware of the folks. You know you don't have no money, but you need to try to get some strategy together so we would have something that we have. We don't have no money, but we do have some muscle or something.
One of the things that
that has been decided.
That's been decided to do.
She is going to push that, and of course,
But
I've already decided.
Even if it meant I would have to alienate myself from the Magnolia Bar. I had decided that before the Magnolia Bar.
Part of the problem we got with the Magnolia Bar, and I hope all of us realize that the Magnolia Bar is not immune to the same kinds of problems that we as the different little organizations or what have you across the various counties face. We don't have a great big slew of our lawyers that's willing and ready and prepared to jump in the fight with us to do all kinds of things. It boils down to the fact that we've got a small handful of few sincere, dedicated lawyers that are members of the Magnolia Bar that have the interests of the black community at heart. Of the masses of the black community, like at heart. So therefore, you're talking about a few in the Magnolia Bar trying to deal with the rest of the Magnolia Bar members the same way we as a few in this community trying to get the rest of the community together. If you think you're joking, you holler at the Magnolia Bar and say, I got a civil rights case that's as clear as night and day of violations, and see how many you get to take care of it. So that problem is
still. One thing to what Hollis has just said, and that is, it's one of the most difficult things that we have to really deal with, and that is, it doesn't matter, and maybe Carol ought to talk to this because I've got him into it. But I sent Carol down to Claiborne County because they were having this problem. People weren't taking money away inside the camp. You ought to go down there and offer them counsel and see if you can't handle their case. Carol goes down and I think Johnny Wall with Carol and Johnny. So let me just stop it right there and let Carol tell you what happened.
Well, first of all, the former president of the Board of Education, Jimmy Smith, had contacted us first, and then the supervisors did. First thing, Jimmy Smith, and they asked us to send our regular billing rates, and John and I talked, and I don't mind telling them, we told them competitive billing rates, which was a little less than what the white folks are charging. And we heard the comment made, I ain't gonna pay no NIGGER, no so-and-so an hour. Might as well go and get a white lawyer. But anyway, we convinced the Board of Supervisors to hire us. And we researched the issue, and we told the Board of Supervisors, we met with them several times. We gave them elaborate reports, extensive reports. And we said, in order to make sure Claiborne County doesn't lose this money, you need to do this. And you need to start in the legislative process because the legislature is going to take the money from you. And you have to make a record in the legislature. You have to show that it's racial discrimination. They had another lawyer advising them who was white that they had hired. And he said, you all don't need to do that. He said, we can get this taken care of through the legislative process politically. Don't worry, I'll take care of it. They immediately fired me and Johnny. They immediately fired Johnny and I. And listened to this white guy. And they went to the legislature. And the legislature passed to taking the money anyway. And so they did not make their record to prove that the purpose of their taking the money was racial discrimination. We had developed a record, and we were going to confront the legislature. We'd asked to attend a hearing. We were going to present the reports and ask the probing questions to get the responses from the legislature. They hadn't taken any money from other power districts and divided them among from other power companies and divided them among the counties within those districts. And they'd only single out a black majority county. But the white supervisor said, we need to keep race out of it. I mean, the white lawyer said, we need to keep race out of this. We can take care of this politically. I'll handle it for you. So they fired us because they didn't want to mention race.
Carol, in this process, I'm asking you as far as the legislature. If the legislature comes up with this program, okay, say the reinforcement program, say at that point, coalition looks at it and says, this is blatantly wrong, it's no good, it's sorry, it should be done this way or this. Is it any way that it can go back to the process rather than going to court? At that time, again ask for different counsel, ask for these things that are being asked for at this present time that it passed. And ask the legislature before they go to court again, rather to pay folks to do the job properly, or it should be done right, rather than going to court. Is that feasible, or?
Mississippi's tradition and history has shown that they will not do anything right unless forced by the federal government to do it right. So I don't think we could give the legislature a second opportunity. We told them how to do it right on the front end. We told them this is what you need to do it right. They ignored it. I don't think we ought to give them another chance. They've had their opportunity and they blew it. That's my personal opinion.
Give them another chance, they'll blew it.
Blew it again.
That's a bad part.
I know it's bad in the city.
But if the House approves what the Senate does or rejects it, or if it rejects it, you don't have anything. And the House, and there's no reason in the world why the House should approve of anything that Brad Dye dictates. And that he dictates whatever passes through the Senate. If he doesn't, put it another way, if he doesn't like it, it ain't going to. Because his cronies who control the committee are not going to bring it out. It's that simple.
Sam, yeah.
I'm concerned about the hiring of Phelps Dunbar, and we who participated in those report and redistricting hearings made those demands, and I think made pretty clear. Is it time, or should we at this point wait till later to contact Justice Department object to this particular process, document what was demanded or requested of the committee, and that they end up hiring something that the black community was in opposition to? And is that time to do that now? Should we do that now? I mean, how should we demonstrate our opposition to what's going on?
I think we should demonstrate it at the next round of hearings. When they draw their plan and present their plan to the public, I think we need to critically analyze it and tear it apart and call a snake, regardless of who they had on their side trying to present that plan to us. That's why I'm saying I don't think it ought to be given no second chance. At that point, they've done wrong, and they tried to hide doing wrong by trying. And as a matter of fact, I sent a letter to Hanging Miller, and I pointed that out.
What did you point out?
I pointed out the fact that they can't hide behind the coats of others. They can't put a Reuben Anderson out front and say, now you have a black. I will let them know that we are not fooled by that. We're not going to accept it. And I'm sort of like George Bush on this point. I made my threat. Well, only from this standpoint of Bush. I don't want to be dug in too deep. I made my threat, and I have to carry through on it. So if George Bush has made a threat, he has to carry through.
I think what we're saying is that we told them how it should be done correctly up front. All right. Now they've had the opportunity to do it correctly.
And they didn't.
Now, and chances are that they have not done that. So they're going to come back with some other public hearings. And we'll be telling them again, based on what they have. So I think this gives them that second chance. you know, if they're serious about doing it right. And once they come back with the public hearings and we tell them again, if they don't go and undo and do it right at that point, I think it leaves us,
No other choice, I understand, but what I'm saying is, what can the legislative process do? If anything, when it comes to the legislature itself, to hold it up, expose it for its mythical values and whatever, to show that it's insanity in its finest hour, that it's going to cost this much money litigation in court, where you can do it for this over here. That's what I'm asking.
That's in the debate.
The legislature, like I said, we're gonna do that, probably won't make any difference, but it should be done.
You can make a record on it.
At least you get, not only the record, you get that press.
Yeah.
Yeah, to make the record is the best thing. The rest is going to do whatever is best for the state's establishment, I can tell you that right now.
But I'm just saying, is there any, that's what I'm asking as a legislator. What in this process, because I don't get, the people on the reinforcement committee don't advise me.
But the reason I said it in that sequence, I think the public hearings are going to come first, and after the public hearing, then the public debate in the legislature. And I'm saying a bunch of exposure is going to be done at this next round of public hearings.
When did they do that?
They have not told us definitely. Initially, they had said it was probably start around the 15th of March. But now they're supposed to get a plan to us. They're supposed to, and now they don't know. It might be the 15th of March when they get the plan, because they're supposed to come up with the current precinct data. And they said that won't be ready now until the first week of March. After they get the current precinct data, then they're going to draw a plan. And this is critical, because we had been accusing them of using mayors to draw the plan, and now they said no, they're going to draw the plan themselves.
Did they actually anticipate being able to take a draft plan to the hearings?
Yeah, when they had a hearing, it's going to be on their plan.
It's going to be on a draft plan.
On the plan that they want stuff down our throat.
And they offered at any time to have any type of mediation after they get their plan drawn, and some of you to ask for any kind of input prior to going to public hearing for them.
No. And then this is still Mississippi.
This is not do. And we know that they're not going to have for our input.
They gave us our input. They put a black. They hired a black. That's the black folks' input. That's our input.
This is not, in all seriousness, this is not just a question of, throwing stones. I think it's really critical that we be realistic about what path, what trail we're on, what reality is in the situation. This is for the marbles, right? This is not games, right? This is the show. This is for what's at stake. What is at stake is the ability to control, right? The ability to say what's going to happen and the ability to say what's not going to happen. And the legislature is at the core of that process, right? This is for the marbles. And Carroll's been trying to get across, and certainly Senator Kirksey at every point, is that racial politics still dominate that process. No matter how it's been prettied up, no matter how much now that black people have the vote, they say, we shouldn't have to consider, what is all this race talk? Right? It's so divisive that you should raise that. There's no race issue, right? We're just all one happy family, right? Well, we know that isn't true, right? We know that isn't true. So that pretense has to be set aside. We have to be realistic. We have to be accurate. We have to tell the truth about what's going down. And no matter what our input is, we do not have the illusion that there are the votes in the legislature to win those fights, which isn't to say those fights shouldn't be fought. They must be fought. But we have to be knowledgeable. We have to be accurate. in explaining to people what is going to happen so that you don't set people up for disappointments by saying, if we just do this right, we can win because there are good folks down there, right? You don't want to set them up for that.
We're not that naive.
No. I'm not talking about what people would like us to say is just that. And there are a lot of white folks out there who are peddling that line. I just went through a weekend of that. Yeah, that's exactly right. But I'm saying to Senator Monty, we've got to be accurate about that. We can't buy into that nonsense. And it is possible for a white legislator to stand up and say the same things, the same truths, because truths are truths, that anybody else would say, that black folks are saying. It's possible to say that. Now, there are risks involved in that, and we know that, right? Telling the truth can be a terrible thing. But you're running from a district in which you say that you have, oh, I shouldn't be doing this, in which you say you have credibility in the community. Right? All right, then you don't have anything to fear, because the worst that can happen to you is that people down in the legislature won't talk to you anymore. Right? Which is worse, the people in your community saying they won't talk to you, or the people down there saying they won't talk to you?
Only 30%?
That's the dread dragon in this group. Most all the anti-lottery people are in that category.
Could I
We need
ask
to
you
go.
a question?
Yeah.
In terms of the upcoming hearings, which I am assuming you do not have a schedule of,
Right, because they haven't told us
but
yet.
there's a certainty there's going to be a plan presented
Yeah.
here, right throughout those hearings.
Yeah.
Is there the prospect of us being able to see that plan before the first hearing?
I have asked them.
Obviously would
I-
help us in terms of
I
how to present.
asked them to give us that plan by February 22nd, and they wrote back and said that the precinct data won't be available until the first week in March. Plan will be available after then, and they're going to give us that plan before they start the hearings. The question is, how much lead time? Initially, they were talking about 2 weeks. We had a plan, but now they're running behind schedule. So does that mean, would they give us 2 days?
We don't want to tip our whole hand
Right.
in terms of how we're going to fight that plan, right?
Right.
Because we're going to ultimately wind up in court. And that's a whole strategy there that needs to be developed in terms of how you attack that plan.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
In the community
Right.
versus how you attack it.
In the courts, right.
Worst
We ought
part
to quit.
about the whole process is that when, if they don't present a plan that's been approved by the legislature, what you will get is one of about 2 or 3 or 4 plans that will be presented. So if there is enough opposition to what is presented, they're gonna pull one or the other out. Here are the adjustments that we've made based on our public hearing, and it will be worse than the one that's I'm gonna tell you that that's what they're gonna do.
Go down. What we did, we asked them for every plan drafted. Everyone drafted. Not just the one presented at the hearing. We asked for every plan drafted.
And they're gonna say,
And we're not going to have 2 days to look at them.
this is the every one.
Yeah. Yeah.
As Senator says, if we're not on top of it and in good communication with the masses of our people, when they come on the news media and says the black community fought against Plan B, so we decided that we would stop trying to push Plan B, and now they say pull this one out of the we're going with Plan B. And if we're not on top of it, the masses of the community will think
We
that
won.
they made an adjustment.
We won.
We won. They're coming out with something worse than the first thing they presented.
Yeah.
There'll still be Plan F, which you ain't gonna see.
Right. Right. Now, the other criteria or the other thing we have to, other thing we have to look at is non-dilution. Non-dilution technically means drawing the most black electable districts as can be drawn. maximizing black voting strength. And that comes under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. Under maximizing black voting strength, certain things we need to look at. And if you remember the example that Kirksey gave a little earlier, I'm going to hold the map up in a minute, even for Greenville and Washington County, cracking. That's the first thing that they've used, and they used cracking effectively in the 70s and the 80s. They bring all supervisors' districts into the heart of the black community and split them up among all 5 districts. They've used cracking effectively in the past, and they're going to try to continue to use cracking in the future. But the other ones the other tactic we're going to have to watch for this time is going to be stacking. That is going to be the sleeper. That's going to be the key one that they're going to use. Stacking is that they're going to concentrate heavy black population concentration with heavy whites. And it just won't be heavy black with heavy whites. It's going to be most of the time, poor blacks. It's going to be the most economically deprived blacks in the area. It's going to be combined with the most affluent white. The most economically deprived blacks are the least likely to participate. The most affluent whites are the most likely to participate. So, Senator, they can give you a 65% district, but it will not be an electable 65% black district by using that. Right. Because those whites with the money will be able to control the black elect, the poor black electorate. So stacking is going to be the sleeper that they're going to use this time around. And
What's the other one?
That's the one I'm getting to. That's the one that they're going to protect the black incumbents who are in and get them to agree to whatever plan they come up with, and that is packing. That's where they're going to have 85, 95, 98, 99% black districts. And those black supervisors and black legislators are going to say that this is a good plan.
But there's a stratagem linked to packing that is not linked to the other 2.
Right.
And that's the protection of incumbents.
Protection of incumbents. That's what I said. That's going to be the key. That's the key. That's why packing is going to be protecting. I said they're going to try to protect the black incumbents. Basically, they need those black incumbents to make comments to the Justice Department to approve this plan that they come up with. So they're going to pack as many of the black, only the safe Negro districts now. They will only pack the safe Negro district. They're not going to pack a district where it's not a black that they can manipulate or control. Exactly. So it's on the safe Negroes that's going to be packed. The incumbents who are not safe are going to be stacked or cracked.
But here also comes again the dilemma, which we're going to have to deal with. As Howard talked about, Senator Kirksey talked about, Carroll talked about, Owen talked about. It's the dilemma, and it's a really nice one for them to create. Are we or are we not going to tell the truth about this and say what is really happening and challenge the incumbents, although they be black, challenge them on the posture that they're taking and say out front, in a clear way, that what they are doing is playing the white game, right? Mm-hmm. And that what the white game is in this ball game is if you can't roll the clock back and eliminate black elected officials, which they concede, then at least the game is to do what? To minimize, to hold the line, not to permit the creation of more, right? So the fact that you have 22 seats in the legislature, which they say, you got it, may mean that you don't have the 44 that Senator Kirksey can create by an appropriate plan. If you could have twice as many and you concede half, you say, all right, we'll just take the 22. What has happened? They've effectively rolled back the clock by not permitting the clock to go forward, right? And that is an issue. That is key. That is what the game is about in this situation.
Now, a problem that we're going to have this time around that we haven't had before is that the main sellers of the bad plan are going to be the black incumbents. And that's sad because, for the most part, the black incumbents have been kept out of the process. There have been other people, technical people, developing the plans. In case of supervisors and justice court judges district, it's been some folks off at the planning and development district that don't have blacks working on the staff with the credibility in the black community developing these plans. And so they have delegated the responsibility to drawing plans to the planning and development district. And the planning and development district people, basically primarily all white, are going to draw plans that dilute black voting strength and ask the black supervisors to go out in your community and sell this plan to the black. So it's not going to be the white community coming to you selling these bad plans this time. It's going to be your black incumbents coming to you selling those plans. Yep. So you have to watch out for, you need to analyze the plan, because one of the things I constantly have to tell black elected officials, that is not your district. The district belongs to the people. It belongs to the voters. And what we have to look at is not diluting black voting strength, not protecting incumbents. Okay. So, if you're in a district that's 95% black, and the adjoining district is 50% black, you might be able to give up some of the black people in the district so you can elect 2 blacks to an office rather than electing just 1.
Did we get some of that writing even up so we can get the right-handed writing?
It's not, you can't read it?
The other tactic used, and this one will be used heavily this time around, it is called lease change. That is a sleight of hands. Lease change plan.
You need something to drink?
I got it. Lease change means just what it says. They have to draw a new plan that make the least number of changes as possible in the existing plan. All existing plans in Mississippi for a supervisor, for a legislative district, even justice court judge district, are bad plans. Whether they have been court approved or drawn by those districts and approved by the Justice Department. All our current districts are bad plans. So why is that? Because we elect so many blacks. We elect a lot of blacks, true. But those districts are badly drawn because those districts are based on the discrimination that was created by J.P. Coleman and the others in trying to remedy the one person, one vote problem. In remedying the one person, one vote problem between 1962 and 1965, the people at Mississippi State and in the legislature said that we had to have equal road mileage in all supervisors' districts. Because they had to have equal road mileage, the districts were unusually large. When those districts were drawn unusually large, they followed imaginary land lines. They followed land section lines. So the precincts that they developed after then followed land section lines. And a lot of those precincts in the rural are unusually large. Even in Washington County, to give an example, each supervisor district has to have a precinct. That's a bad precinct. Those are bad precincts. That's based on the equal.
You put the coal in here, when the heat goes up, you get the chimneys right over here.
These precincts are based on the equal road mileage concept that J.P. Coleman developed. So because he said we had to have equal population. That was just the most craziest logic that was used. So this time around, Washington County, in every county in Mississippi, every plan supervisor district that's been approved by a court or approved by the Justice Department is based on the equal road mileage concept. So your precincts are based on equal road mileage concept. Bad precincts. This time around, in the redistricting process, they're going to say we have to go with least change. Change these districts as least as possible to equalize the population. And they're going to say not to dilute the black voting strength. We want to keep this. We got 2 black supervisors in Washington County. We want to keep 2 black supervisors. So let's just make a few changes where the population is, right here in the heart of Greenville.
Before you go off this has a brand name, by the way. It's called a Coleman stove.
So I'm saying this time we cannot be fooled by least change. In all these counties, the precincts need to be redone. Supervisor districts need to be redone so they could be compact. We don't need to be sold by least change, and that's a tactic that they're really going to use.
Do we have the right to
Yeah,
do that?
in addition to what Carroll has already said, you can see that if you really wanted to run the district another direction, these precincts here stand in your way.
Right. You can't do it. You have to come up with new precincts in order to do that.
The article I saw in the paper the other day from South Delta Planning that's drawing a redistricting these districts said that Washington County, it was, some of the supervisor districts, they didn't think they were going to have to change them. Why was that?
No, they won't change out here. Least change is in here.
Yeah.
Your population is concentrated in Greenville. So they're not going to change any of this. We stuck with these bad precincts all out here in the county.
Interestingly,
If we buy that argument.
Washington County lost population.
Yes.
Greenville has gained population. So they don't, they are not concerned about out here. They want to change it up here where it will have a greater effect.
Now, Ms. Pryor, I'm going to bring everything into perspective according to a comment you made earlier. There are some bad things about the unit system. There's some negatives, then there's some goods. If we did not have a county unit system, the courts would require that we keep these precincts and districts as they exist. But because equal road mileage is not a criteria when you have a county unit system, you can redo all of the precincts. That's what needs to be done. So they do not need to maintain any of these precincts out here because Baby Ray, who's from the same county as J.P., I'm talking about Baby Ray Mavis and J.P. Coleman from Choctaw County. J.P. Coleman created equal road mileage and kept it in place for over 20 years to discriminate against blacks. Now Baby Ray comes along and come up with the county unit system to discriminate in another way, but we can use that to undo what JP did in creating the equal road mileage concept.
Oh, so that's the reason why you hear some of these whites in office in these counties are saying that we don't need no county administrators, because they already know if you don't have them, then you're locked in.
Then you're locked in.
That's what
Because you're locked into these bad precincts and stuff as they exist.
Just get rid of some That's why.
So the first thing, we never need to go in saying, accepting that what the court has approved or what Justice Department has approved is good. If they get you to accept that, if they say, well, look, y'all went to court before in Washington County, and the federal court approved this plan. But the federal court approved that plan because at that time there was no unit system. Equal road mileage was the law of the day, and so they had to draw all these bad precincts. The whole thing needs to be redone. The precincts need to be redrawn. The districts need to be redrawn. Because if this stays in place, it will continue to discriminate against blacks. To show you, a lease change, under a lease change concept, all of the changes in the districts, in all 5 supervisor districts, will take place right here in the heart of Greenville. All 5 supervisor districts come into Greenville. This is a cohesive community of people who've been split up between all 5 supervisor districts. So we don't need to get caught up in the argument that there's no discrimination because we have 2 black supervisors. You have 2 majority black supervisor districts, but look how those districts are drawn. That's the key. Look how they're drawn. Not only are they drawn bad, you could have 3 black majority supervisor districts, which we'll get to in just a minute. Now, one of the things you need to keep in mind is that under this lease change concept that's going to come at you, they're going to say that these people know where the district lines are. They know what precinct they're in, and they know where they're voting. But let me go back to the other map just for a minute. Because Kirksey talked about this a little earlier. Community of interest. Okay. 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 Now, how do these people down here know the people up here? Community of interest. People way down here in district, all the way down here, District 1, know the people, the black folks up here in District 1. Community of interest. Unless you've been to jail. Unless you've been to jail. There is no sense in maintaining the districts as they presently are. So the argument is going to be put to you. We don't want to change the districts because the people know what the supervisor district they're in. They've been voting in those districts for a while. They've gotten to know the people in that community. That's a lie. These people up here hadn't gotten to know anybody way down here, and these folks here haven't gotten to know anybody way down here. So basically, we don't need to be sucked in by lease change. That's going to be a tactic that's going to be used to try to maintain these bad districts that we have. And we certainly don't need our black elected officials, our supervisors, maintaining that they don't need to make that many changes.
Come to a redistricting, annexation. Were you in that meeting?
Yeah.
Some years ago?
Yeah.
Part of myself,
Annexation.
yeah.
Johnny and I got cussed out by a legislator. I can't call his name, but he's from Washington, he's from Greenville. But he cussed Johnny out for invite. What the hell did you invite that man? Who authorized you to invite that man?
Leslie.
Who authorized you to invite that man? All I was going to do is just tell him, what I thought about what the plan was.
Yeah, I remember that.
And
I remember that.
Now, what I'm going to do, we're going to do the county, we're going to do the black population, black voting age population, black.
You were there, weren't you in the
Yeah, I was about to know. Yeah, I was there. Good job.
You'll stop. I know. Not yet.
do all 5?
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to do black population and voting age.
Total population or total
Just,
black?
just black for each district. And we need to do this percentage over here. Percentage right here. Percentage. Yeah, then the voting age and the percentage.
Voting age black?
Mm-hmm. 10%, yeah.
Carol,
Yeah.
the next round of hearing, do you believe the pattern as far as sites will be the same as the first round?
Probably be the same. Okay. In Washington County, you can see in the handout.
The bulletin, call it the bulletin.
Yeah, the bulletin. No, the bulletin. Yes. All right. District 1 has a total black population of 4,778 people. It is 34.98% black.
98?
Mm-hmm. It has a voting age population of.
You're gonna go that close.
Yeah. Okay. 5 right down.
Were they in the pass out?
Yeah.
The bulletin.
Yeah. He keeps saying bulletin. Okay. And the black voting age population is 3,002 for 31.23%. District 2 has a black population of 6,805 for a black percentage of 45.78. Black voting age population of 3,962 for 39.78% black. District 3 has a black population of 11,153 for 79.47. And black voting age population of 6,583 for 75.42%. District 4 has a black population of 9,452 for 66.81%. Black voting age population of 5,696 for 63.20%. And District 5 has a black population of 7,009 for 62.40%. And a black voting age population of 4,304 for 56.67%. Now, what districts are the black supervisors elected in?
No, they're in 3 and 4.
3 and 4.
3 and 4.
3 and 4, President.
Okay. So, District 3 has a black population of almost 80%. District 1 and 2 has a black population in the 30s and the 40s. Can they elect? What about District 5?
Easy.
What about increasing the black population in District 5? You could take it from. Now, question is, where would you take the black population from? Hold them out. But now, we don't want to go to those bad districts that they already.
Remember the map that I showed you about Hines County? That's what you should be thinking in Washington County.
You could draw.
Let's stop all of the districts.
You draw districts where the population is.
So you figure out the percentage that
in the city.
of the population.
You draw your districts in the city.
Wait a second.
Well, then,
That's
vote
not,
that-
are you looking at the voting age population?
Mhm.
That's where we ought to be.
Yeah, right. I know, but I'm saying, which district, all right, they said blacks already elected 3 and 4. I'm saying, they said District 5, which is right, is the other district you can get. Where would you take the black population from? That's the question.
I take it from 3.
Okay, what about these 2 districts? Can they elect?
I take it slightly from 3.
You-
3 is almost 80%.
80%. 3 is packed. Any district that's packed, you can take from. You can take from. But what about 1 and 2? Because they don't have any opportunity to elect at all.
They can't elect, there's no point in looking at it as dilution or non-dilution. Hell, they can't elect anything, our emphasis is representation. So you can take, reduce, that's right, you get districts that can elect, and the way you're gonna do that, well, first of all, you gotta know where the relationship between those districts.
Well,
3, 4, and 5.
Unless you're going to just make a drastic change, as I've suggested in Hines County, and draw some new districts from out of the county. And concentrate on where the population in Washington County is most heavily, black population is most heavily concentrated, and see what you can do there. Because you're going in the process. You're in the process, you're going to be able to draw smaller, more compact districts. And the smaller and more compact they are, the better they are for the election of black, because you don't have that much territory to cover. And you can maximize your minimum amount of campaign contribution you're going to get.
Now, let me throw
And
something.
ballots on the
Okay.
ballot.
Right.
On the face of it, a Hines County resident will say that to a Washington County resident. But then maybe a Washington County resident has to say, let us look and see what communities we're talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
And
I'm
where,
trying to divide it right
and
now.
where the communities of interest may lie.
Yeah.
It may be politically, right, the best posture. It may be.
To lead the districts as they are?
No,
No, I mean to make the changes in
to
the,
make the change
in the city, within the city.
the majority black district. Okay? So that you don't get undue flack from the black community in 2 or the black community in 1. They still got to live in the same city.
Yeah,
Right?
you know.
So on a case, I'm just suggesting.
Yeah.
I would probably 90% of the time go along with what you said. But I would suggest that it would need to be looked at, right?
See,
To see what in fact you're delivering.
See, one of
What in fact you're delivering.
One of the things that we're doing here is not drawing lines, because we're not,
Right.
so we're not dealing with that when we talk. We're just talking about based on
From a legal standpoint,
numbers from a legal point where you could.
where could you take blacks and not dilute black voting strength?
All I'm suggesting is when you make this style of a presentation, right, you take that kind, right, of position. You allow, always give your folks some latitude to look at their communities, right, and see what in fact they're fracturing, okay? When they take, you can't, it may be on paper, all right? Very easy to say, take it from 2 or take it from 1. All right, but it may be simpler in the long run because of the contiguous configuration of 5 and 3.
Which, Owen, you're absolutely correct. That's why we're saying from a legal standpoint, where could you take blacks from to add to 5? Right. And everybody is right. You could take from 1, 2, or 3 and not dilute. That's all we're saying. Sure. No, but you would know the local politics and the communities of interest to know where would be the best place to take it from. Exactly. If you took it from 4, you would be diluting. Now, if you take too many from 3, you'd be diluting. Because right now it has a 75% black voting age. Exactly. If it can win with a 65%, it can move 10% down to here and make that 66%.
It may make better sense.
Or you can move 5%, or 10% from these 2. Exactly. Or you can move from District 2 down. Right. Well, we're just saying from a legal point of view, You don't want districts that are packed, so you could take it from District 3. You don't want districts that are cracked. Right now, all 5 supervisor districts crack the black population. So you're safe to take it from either 1 or 2 in Greenville because all 5 districts run into the heart of Greenville black population. You can take it from 1 or 2, or you can take it from 3, but when you're taking it from 3, you can't take too many. Right, because you still have to leave 3 an electable black majority. But the point being, you can wind up with 3 black majority districts. Let me give you the total population for the county, which is, I'm just going to give you the black population because you already know the 7,000 total. Black population totals 39,197, which is 57.70%, which is 57.70% black.
Total population is what?
Total population is 67,935, and total voting age population is 44,908. Now the total black population percentage is 57.70.
Is what?
57.70. And the total black voting age population percentage is 52.43. Now you can add these two figures.
Total, not total black.
Right, that's just total for the county. And that's total voting age, not total black voting age.
That's right.
Yeah. Now, the reason I said that, if you look in the bulletin, the handout, we're from the South. We don't say bulletin here. New England, Yankees, bullet in it, right? It was somewhere in either this bulletin or in the materials, something I wanted to call your attention to. It must have been in the materials.
Can I call your attention to one thing that
Yeah.
was addressed, and that is, we talked earlier about lack of being in the process of years and years and years, not being in there, and the lack of familiarity with the way things are done, and just simply being out of it. I remember down in Lawrence County where we were having redistricting, and one supervisor district in southwest Lawrence County was about 98% white. So that left about, say, a dozen or maybe 50 blacks. And so we would, but that 50 black just happened to be on the borderline between, in an area where I was drawing a black majority district. And this guy jumped up and said, hell, we don't want you diluting our voting strength. You taking some of, we talked about a population of about 3,000. And you got about 50 blacks in it. He said, don't be diluting our voting strength. Damn, it's diluted in the first place. But then the knock it all off, Owen.
Yeah, I hear you.
Here comes the ultimate, when it was just about agreed that we were going to adopt that plan. One black jumped up and asked, we haven't gotten out of slavery yet, I'm telling you. One black jumped up and said, I don't know what y'all want to adopt the correction plan for. We ain't got no black in this county qualified to be no supervisor. Sorry about that, y'all. But we got a long way to go. And a hell of a lot of track.
Let me get everybody to refer to page 21 of the handout. There's something that I want to correct in the materials that Mike and I put out on page 21. Phantom black majority districts. Oh, I'm sorry. It's in the book. It's in the notebook. It's in the notebook. Page 21 of the notebook. Phantom black. I corrected it again. Yes.
What page is that?
21.
Blank in here.
Uh-huh.
And it looks like Mr. Price said, there's 29,000 registered voters in Washington County. There's got to be some kind of massive campaign to get people registered.
The registration camp.
There's going to have to be some kind of massive campaign to get people to come out and vote on voting day. Now, I know that the Chicago last Congressman ran, there was a little vote out before 4 o'clock. 4 to 7, there was, numbers started coming out.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just saying that if you take up a percentage of how many people vote, you're gonna have to register over that number to get back to a percentage that will actually vote.
That's true. The registration, hopefully we'll pick up a few, with mail in, but then turnout on election day is going to still be the big problem. Turnout, getting them registered is going to be easier.
If the bill is passed, and it's not in effect to July 1, we need to have registration.
Before then,
Now.
right now.
Well, until the July 19th, well, it's
Other-
July 19th is the deadline for qualifying. And we need to start now. But what I'm thinking of, you gotta have an incentive to get these people to motivate them, and you gotta have go door to door to find them and educate them. And that's what I'm trying to work with and organize with to do that. But I do need something to help do it. I don't know where we can find some money to help these people. Nobody's gonna do anything free anymore.
That's sad. But
I'm trying to do some voter registration on my own, or get the community help in me going finding these people. There are some of them will change addresses, will not come in, they'll move, and they will not come in and change their addresses. Where, see, if you do not vote in your district and precinct, if you moved out of it, you can't vote for your representative.
right.
So that's the problem here in Washington County.
3 things. One, on page 21,
Yeah.
in paragraph, on the phantom black majority districts, in the first paragraph, in the 3rd line, next to the last word where the word not is underlined, delete the word not, take that out, okay? Secondly, the question has arisen about what does racial block voting mean? And the
Okay.
way that term is used in connection with the Voting Rights Act is that it has to do with white folks consistently and overwhelmingly voting for white candidates whenever they are pitted against black candidates. And it's that racial block voting that Senator Kirksey was referring to earlier, which makes it so difficult for black candidates to win, particularly when the black community splits its vote and engages in voting for different candidates, but in which the white community, because it is so overwhelmingly obsessed, if that's the right term, obsessed with racial politics, right? And concerned that no matter what the qualifications are of a white candidate, in the face of a black candidate, they're going to vote for the white candidate. That's what's meant by racial block voting. They vote as a block. Their consciousness is that we're white and we'll vote for the white person regardless of ability, right? That's
Yeah. Yeah, and racial black voting is a double-edged sword. Blacks vote for blacks and whites vote for whites. Unfortunately, in Mississippi, whites vote for whites to far greater numbers than blacks vote for blacks. You might have 80% of the black voters voting for a black candidate. 20% might vote for the white candidate. You're going to have 99 and 44, 100% of the white voters voting for the white candidate most of the time.
The third thing I wanted to suggest is that we haven't talked about the formation of a, Washington County Redistricting Committee, but it seems to me that one of the things that a county redistricting committee can work on is the problem of maximizing voter registration and maximizing voter education. And one of the things that we're going to be doing in the spring cycle of these workshops in May and June is working on voter registration and voter education as a follow-up to the work that we're going to be doing on redistricting, after these workshops or during the next 3 months leading up to that, so that you're right, there's a natural relationship that has to be worked on, and we'll be glad to help you with that. Okay, we're committed to doing that.
Now,
We need to motivate these people to not only get registered, but come back out and vote
on election day.
And I believe if they're educated to that fact, they will get on their own and come out to the polls on election day. Because I see so many votes, our votes are lost on election day. For instance, the ignorance of people, they go in that machine and they pull that lever down. If they get the wrong lane, they do not understand that you can push it back up before that curtain closes and vote for your right candidate. And a lot of them go in there and they'll vote for their top vote, they won't read it. And they will not vote for 1, 2, 3 candidates on down. And they come out and delete the machine. Well, that means there are 5 candidates that you didn't vote for. You lost those votes. And, it's a lot of things. And affidavit voting, people go across town, but if it's not a countywide election, that's a lost vote. Absentee voting, I mail them out all the time. I write bold letters, please sign, check here, please sign there. It'll come back with maybe 1 signature, not witness. Well, that's a void ballot. So we losing a lot of our votes because the people are not educated to the facts. I don't care how much material you send them out there, they will not read. So what I'm proposing to do is get a crew to go from door to door and try to educate these people, motivate them, and find them and let us know the ones not registered and encourage them to come in. Right now, we don't have satellite registration except 1 day every 4 years in the precinct. However, I do register them, have registrars on election. Anytime election day, you can register in our precinct. I'm doing that in Washington County. But I can't do satellite registration other than that time and every 4 years, once every 4 years in the precinct block. And it has to be pre-cleared for the Justice Department. My proposal is then to do countywide re-registration on April 27th. But it is with the Board of Supervisors forward to the Justice Department for pre-clearance. That's under that $350 law.
Wait a minute, do you have re-registration? Re-registration or registration?
Registration, not re-registration.
Yeah. Oh.
Registration if you have never registered.
Yeah, okay, good.
For 1986, but you gotta get it pre-cleared. That's pre-cleared.
Let me go ahead and let me do one more thing. They can do that. Community organizing. Organizing. We can skip the role playing.
Yeah, we're gonna see.
To register that one
The
day,
organizing.
Because we gotta talk about what the community, we gotta talk about organizing. The
One
committee
day.
and what they're
Wait a
gonna
minute
do.
now.
Yeah.
Okay, right?
Yeah. Let me mention one more thing.
For 1 day.
Are y'all gonna do it April 26th? I heard that 27th. I heard that all circuit clerks are gonna try to do it statewide on the 27th. Okay. Yeah. But I heard that all circuit clerks are gonna try to do it on the same day this time around, same Saturday.
Only 1 day, you allow, by the Justice Department, you allow satellite registration in your precinct.
Okay.
Except on election day, we send out applications and let deputy managers, deputy clerks. I have deputized some managers that they register vote.
Okay.
Got you. I mean, outside of the.
Will they let you pay up for that?
The lowest gonna pay them for that 1 day, yeah. Yeah, the whole county. Yeah, outside.
Okay. One more thing I wanted to mention on the bulletin number 1. That's the first bulletin in the handout. There's some tables at the end. The next to the last page. Okay. On the front of it, it's going to have bulletin number 1 written on the right corner.
Okay, what page is that?
Now, next to the last page of bulletin 1, it's the 90 population should be count by race or counted by race. The population for each county by race. This was prepared by MARIS. MARIS is the group under IHL, Institutions of Higher Learning. It used to be the State College Board. They changed the name to Institution of Higher Learning. That's the one that kicked Johnny Walls off. They didn't want Johnny Walls to get on, I don't mean to say. Kick him off. Maris is the one that is developing the computer information that's going to be used for precincts, for racial population data, for precincts and percentages. And I don't want us to get suckered into taking everything Maris put out as being the gospel truth. Because
First of all, Karen, would you point out the composition of Maris? Maris is comprised of 21
state agents.
state agency heads.
Heads, yeah.
The head of 21 state agencies, only one black. And that's the one that, I don't know what it's called now, but it was called the Governor's Office of State Federal Programs. It's fit. She is the only one on there, and you can imagine what she's going to say when she...
Was that the office Beverly Holden's name?
That was the office your Beverly had.
Okay.
And what's the lady's name?
B. Branch.
Oh, B branch.
Yeah, that's her office now. And she is the only, and they meet every time somebody at the top wants them to meet. They might meet within the next 7 or 8 years, or they might meet next.
But they have a staff,
But they got staff.
computer experts that's doing all the work. All white. Our staff is all white. They're the one that's going to put out this population by race for each precinct. And now,
Let me add one other feature to that, Carol. When I was investigating or trying to find out more about Maris and getting all of the information about the various departments and agency heads who were there, and finally I ran up on this component of the Maris that says Spatial Data Center. Spatial data, what the hell we need with data from space? But at any rate, it turns out that this, I said, where is this? It said Jackson State University. Is that a fact? Well, they got involved a black institution. So I said, thank you very much. I shot out to Jackson State from the R&D Center. I couldn't find it to save my life. I asked several heads of departments. I couldn't find it. They did a spatial data center. Never heard of it. That's what they were telling me. Every head of department that I asked. So rather than ask the question by telephone, I went right back out to the R&D Center and said, where in the hell is the Spatial Data Center? So, oh, I forgot to tell you, it's in their computer center, and it's in room so down in the basement. So I went right back out. The brother to the head of Maris is the white guy, over the center at Jackson State University. And here are the students in there pumping all these data into the computers without the slightest idea about how it's going to be used and for what it's going to be used. And they just pumping it in there. And they also had a small digital map making piece of equipment at Jackson State University. He was telling me, this is for your information, he was trying to promote this thing. He was saying, you know, I can produce small, and they got equipment over at the R&D Center or the College Board where they can put a great big map out. But he said, now look what I can do. And he comes off with a map about better than a yard square. And he said, now where do you live? And I looked at the map, my point of view. He said, I can tell you everybody who voted from over there. I can tell you what their income is. All of this, the students were putting into the computer without even realizing how it was going to be used.
And they got that information to use on reapportionment this time, which we don't really have access to yet. That's why I'm pointing out this data on Maris, because this is information that Maris put out in this handout, next to the last page. You notice they put all the county population, they took this off the census. Over at the last column, percentage non-white. And it looks like the percentages are way up there. Washington County, 58%. It's really 57.7. They add in Asians, Indians, and everybody else, and others with black. And that's something that we should not get tricked into. When you're doing your percentages, only include blacks and whites in your percentages because Asians and everybody else don't vote with black people in Mississippi. And when the courts look at it and when the Justice Department look at it, if you have a district and you're going to say the percentage white and percentage non-white, and if you're getting up, let's say District 5, we're going to try to make in Washington County 65, well, we'll say 60% voting age. If it's 60% non-white voting age, they're considering all that to be black. And that's everybody added in. But the courts look at cohesive racial units, meaning groups that vote together as a block. You do not want to add anybody to blacks who don't vote with blacks. So that means you don't add nobody. I don't know anybody in the state that vote with the black except the black. So we don't want to get caught into any data that Marist or the Planning and Development Districts or anybody else put out concerning non-white percentages, non-white population. We want to go strictly by white and black.
All right. What we need to move into because of the lateness of the hour. Oops. Right, before we do that, let's give Carroll a good news. We need to talk about what we're going to do here in Washington County by way of forming a Washington County Redistricting Committee to focus in on what needs to be done. Good.
Can I,
Kirksey wanted to, yeah.
I was going to have to back up the request, but since you didn't, I'm going to recover.
Kirksey need to do one other thing
Go ahead.
before we move into that. He's got a little quiz. You know, a lot of times when we give out a lot of information, we need to test our students one another to make sure that we have comprehended some of the things that we've been talking about. Aptitude test. So Kirksey has an aptitude test he wants to give us.
Size is irrelevant. One, now I'm unfolding flags here. And I want to know from you, which one is which? Who knows which one is which? Are these the same? Is this the same? These two the same? Or is one different? Don't you say a word. Huh?
One's the Confederate.
Well, no. If you turn them around, they're the same. You see, they got two sides to them, the sides exactly. They're same.
Did they say?
No, they're not exactly
Oh,
the
I
same.
got it. One's a Confederate flag, one's a state
Oh,
flag.
I'm sorry. You're exactly right. Now, which is which?
Now I'm embarrassed.
Now it was a guess.
One is
Intelligent guess. All
I
right.
can get. I bet somebody else gets.
Who knows? Anybody in here know? Senator?
I would say that that's the state flag.
That's the one you missed on.
I missed it.
See this white border around? This is known as the Union of any flag. This is the Union here.
Yeah.
And this white line around there is the only difference between this one and this one. But there is one hell of a difference beyond that desecrates this flag. This flag has 13 stars in this cross. So does this flag. Now, when this flag was created as the Union here, that became the flag, the battle flag of the Confederacy. And the 13 stars represented the 13 states. Two of them were not really officially a part of the Confederacy, Kentucky and Missouri. But you are talking about the 13 states that the Confederacy claimed. Now comes 1894, and the people wanted the Confederate flag in Mississippi. And would you believe it? The legislature design a new flag for the state of Mississippi. And in doing that, they described this flag to a T. And then put this white thing around here to change it so that it becomes a state. But worse than that, the Confederacy consisted of going from the northeast all the way around, would be Virginia, North, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, Arkansas, back to Tennessee, to Kentucky, and then to Missouri. That's 13 states. They ain't on either one of these flags. In 1894, the state legislature had a group to design, and the state legislature adopted this flag, and the states designated by these stars began with New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and Maryland. Only 4 states represented in here were in the South, and that would be Virginia, North, South Carolina, and Georgia. That is a desecration of the Confederate flag, and it's a desecration of our state flag. Because it does not, and they call this the rebel flag. Hell, it's not a rebel. Only North, South Carolina, Virginia, and Georgia are represented by either one of these. Because this union here, the stars in it are exactly the same as over here. Now, the purpose in bringing that up is I think it's a beautiful flag, to tell you the truth.
You do?
It is.
You do?
It's a beautiful design.
You do?
Yeah, I believe it. I think it's a beautiful design. It's
We never
an
did agree on
ingenious.
everything.
Yeah, I think it's a good design. But what it amounts to is that there are some people who will do any. Remember what I said about Mr. White? How you get what you want is unimportant. It's whether you get it. The people were determined that they were going, of the leadership of Mississippi, was determined that they were going to have the Confederate flag as the state flag. Put that little white band around there and adopted the Confederate flag, and then desecrated the Confederate flag by redesignating what these stars mean. And I'm pointing that out for one reason. It sort of looks at the integrity of the leadership of this state, and it hasn't changed a hell of a lot from 1894. And that's sad. And that's why this state, as potentially rich as it is the nation's poorest. That's sad. Thank you.
Thank you. See? Very simple little quiz. Not many of us passed our aptitude test. Owen did an intelligent guess and was scared to follow up on it. Be prepared to stand on what you feel is right. Put this on you. Why am I putting this on me?
Well, now we need to work together a little bit and talk about what we need to do and how we need to do it in terms of where we go from here. You know, from what we discussed today, that there's a task ahead, both at the legislative level and at the county level. And we have to have a way of going about doing it. Now, you all missed last night's session when we talked about organizing, but we need to have some kind of a community effort and a way of pulling people together, a way of pooling our strength and our resources to be able to get the work done that needs to get done. And that's where we need some kind of a committee. These committees have already been formed in Quitman, in Tunica, Tallahatchie, Panola, Holmes, and McClure. And this weekend we'd like to see one formed here in Washington County. How do you feel about that? You have to speak louder so we can hear you, Shirley.
I think that it's important that we go ahead and inform our committee this evening, the ones that are here that wants to be part of the committee can, and there may be other persons that, you know, that they might know that could be part of it. We need to go ahead on and do something today while we're here, take a step.
So you're suggesting that the people who are here comprise the beginning of that committee. How do you all feel about that? Okay. So if you form the committee, let's say for convenience you call it at this point the Washington County Redistricting Committee, what's one of the first things you need to do? And what are you going to do that? I'm sorry, go ahead. Can't hear you.
Well, I mean, you have to decide who's gonna be in this committee, and the committee itself is gonna have to elect its officers, organize the committee itself. An organizational meeting of the committee itself.
We need to get more people involved, right?
These precincts.
How are you going to get more involved?
Go down to the precincts and notify them.
Through community meetings, each one of us in here represent a different beat.
Through each precinct. Notify the folks in each 5 precincts and districts, supervisor districts, and notify them we've got a committee formed, come to the meeting. Let somebody present to them what we're trying to do.
How are you going to notify people?
Video, big warriors,
The churches.
networking,
What's the most effective way you could reach people directly?
telephone networking, and put
Okay, so you can phone
With
people,
the
right?
Rolling canvassing.
those, double.
Well, you need a lot of people to do that in a big city like this, right?
Oh,
In my community, how I get my words out so much is through our churches.
Church communication.
Well, what's the
Public
next thing?
places.
What's the next thing you're going to do then? What are you going to notify people of? And what are you going to ask them to do?
Come to the meeting. Get involved in research committee.
What meeting? When will the meeting be? Who's gonna call the meeting?
We have said when
When
we
we
say when
organize
the meeting.
ourselves as the Washington County Redistricting Commission, committee, we're gonna have to define what we are, so we'll be able to tell the community what we are, what our goals are. We need to define, you know. Somebody may ask, what that means, for what, you know?
And if we make a committee of ourselves in the day to go and notify the people, mean they'll know who we are.
Okay, so you need to set goals. What would be the goal of this committee?
To get more blacks elected.
Well, in order to get more elected, what are we talking about this committee getting involved in?
Redistrict.
Okay. And what about redistricting would be the goal?
No voter participation, direction of vote, same thing.
Ensure the
Well,
lines
that's registration. What about redistricting?
ensure the lines are drawn where we can.
Main purpose of organizing the committee.
Is informing people about the critical, about how critical it is. We're gonna inform them why it's so critical that they get involved on this redistricting because there are some problems that hadn't
I have already
been
been
expressed.
talking to the minister lounge, but I didn't know, I knew what it meant, the letters that I had got. I had already talked to them to take it to their members of, that are the people to have shakes in this area.
Okay, so if you're going to have a meeting at which you're going to share with people information about what you're doing and what your goals are, when is that meeting going to be?
And that be what
Yeah.
Needs to be
not
some, in other
have to
words.
sit down and you know, and set what our plans are. We don't need to
Okay, so what do you need to do first? You need to get yourselves together, right?
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to,
We need to set a meeting, and then we go to the community, but not we just going to the community now.
okay.
We need to get together and set a meeting.
So you need to set a meeting, and you need to get more people to that meeting,
Right.
you know?
To tell them what we try to do and ask them to join the committee.
Okay, so when are you gonna hold that meeting? When you get together to do what you just said you're gonna do?
As soon as possible.
Mike, now if I could interrupt,
Yeah.
I believe someone said earlier that the supervisors have already employed the local planning and development district to draw a
They put in the
plan.
paper, they had already employed them.
So time is running out as far as, because whenever the committee gets organized, they need to make an impact on the supervisor before the planning and development district gets carried too far along. So I'm just trying to think, and
So this time is of the essence, right? It's urgent. So do you want to set a meeting time right now? A place, a location, a time when you're gonna get together?
What about this coming Saturday?
Oh, super, they meeting. Oh, they need something.
We got a whole week we need to meet before next Saturday because time is,
I mean, if they gonna be cheating,
When they meeting?
this coming Saturday first.
yeah, we need to meet like about, if they get the notices out Monday, we need to meet about Wednesday night.
Yeah, or it get too cold.
See, we gonna have a meeting Tuesday, a voter registration, when it's Friday, Tuesday, over there at the tower. We meet Wednesday. And you get the notices out Monday.
Well, who are you gonna get notices out to come to this meeting?
People?
Get us in committee. You need us to do the committee. And just ask more people to it, because then she can.
We know concerned citizens to call and contact.
Okay, who's gonna take responsibility for doing this?
Everybody needs to tell somebody to jump at this meeting.
So when are you gonna meet?
Wednesday,
What time?
around about 6 o'clock.
What day will that be?
Everybody get off.
28?
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Wednesday around about 6
What
o'clock.
time?
When everybody get off, about 6 o'clock.
Yeah, when's
You got to draw.
27.
Well, it is Thursday.
We're gonna meet Wednesday,
Okay.
6 o'clock, 6 o'clock,
6 p.m. Where are you gonna meet?
Delta Tower.
Who's gonna arrange for Delta Towers?
I'll ask for it. Mr. Knight says it over there. I'll
Get it out of the way.
He called Reverend, Reverend Stockton.
Okay, now, if you look in the back of bulletin number 2. Yes, sir.
We have Emma here, and I think we might need to go through the same process and set this meeting.
In Shark Units Cleaner? Yeah, they're gonna have to do that.
Yeah.
I was trying to focus, since Emma was here alone, I was trying to focus on Washington. Since going through that process with her alone is not,
She's a one-woman committee.
yeah. If you look in the back of bulletin number 2, you will see that there are a number of suggestions. We have one handy. I'll show you what page it's on. Oh, thanks. On page, starting on page 8, there are some suggestions there of what you can do step by step in terms of approaching your county board of supervisors. Okay, it's sort of like in a checklist form. And if you have any questions about any of that,
What page?
starting on page was it 9? Page 8. Okay, starting in the middle of the page then, all right? It says a step-by-step how to keep the momentum going in the redistricting work. And we give you a couple of pages of suggestions about the kinds of things that need to be done and the urgency of doing it, and we'll be glad to give you any information or assistance that you may need in doing that. But I know the hour is late, so I'm just trying to sort of
Just
speed
like,
along.
I know we need to speed on, but there's one other very important thing. We talked about having a meeting on Wednesday, the 27th. What's going to be done at that meeting? What's going to be talked about? We talked a little bit about how we're going to get people out to that meeting. Now, once we get people to that meeting, what we're going to do with them?
We can have a presenter.
And who's going to do that?
We need to have a presenter from your training staff to come there and go over these things with us.
Well, really, this is the moment where you should take control of this rather than delegating that to one of us, and begin to work with the information and the concepts and how you talk about that among yourselves, and begin to build that relationship rather than going through another session like this where we're up here and you're there. Yes, right. That's right.
However, in the meantime, if there are some questions about things that you might have, you should feel free to call and reaffirm some of those things. What were you about to say, Sam?
Judge raised a concern based upon the legal limits that they have as far as participating in politics.
No,
This is-
Carol, can we debate, can we raise issues and debate on issues that are on that redistricting? I know in the law we can, it's written in the county, that we can raise issues or debate on the law, but can we also conduct the meetings or raise issues on the redistricting as well?
At
When we have community
community,
meetings,
yeah.
we could be a spokesman for the committee.
Provided, I guess we get the same, channels of information, y'all could, you're talking about once a committee is formed?
She's asking about whether there are any legal barriers to a judge participating as any other citizen.
Oh,
in a
okay,
redistricting
oh,
process.
judicial candidacy.
Yeah.
No, the only thing I think.
What?
No.
The candidate cannot.
No, there's no prohibition. The only prohibition is against speaking out on any particular candidacy for office, or supporting some candidate.
I mean, other than a judicial candidate.
No, can't even support any
Candidate, period.
Support yourself?
No,
Yeah, yourself.
there's also a
But you can't publicly speak out.
During the campaign? The judicial candidate can't campaign?
The canon has written that no judicial candidate can publicly speak concerning any political candidate's attempt to win office.
Other than their own?
It didn't say other. That language is not in there.
Well,
It's
judicial
assumed.
candidates campaign, right?
Yeah.
And they speak out on
But
behalf of...
they campaign privately.
Their committee is supposed to do all the talking.
The
You mean a
committee,
judicial candidate can't make a
the
speech?
election committee is supposed to do all the talking for them. They can talk privately. No, privately.
Okay, but listen, okay, there's some,
They can educate people in terms of responsibilities and that kind of stuff. That's in
But
essence,
now, this is, you're not
that's in essence their campaign speech.
public issues.
I'm not talking about political, I think that's 7.
Yeah.
Political, there.
I'll double check. I'll double check and make sure, because I think you can speak out on, you're just talking about reapportionment stuff.
Yeah, this stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Then that's a public issue,
All right.
which I still think that the candidates violate First Amendment rights.
You're saying
I said that all
they
the-
can't speak out on this?
I think they can. I told her I'll double check. I need to give me a phone, yeah, so I can give you a call. I'll double check on it. No, that judges can't say anything in Mississippi. I don't think it's right. I think only time you prohibit it is when it might affect something that's coming into your court.
That's what I would think. That's usually the standard restriction.
Right, and that's why I'm thinking, I'm saying, that I think that you can speak out on any other matter of public concern. But if you can't, I think it ought, that ought to be challenged, First Amendment. That's First Amendment problem.
Yeah. There's no conflict of interest.
Right.
I mean, this is an elected judge situation rather than an appointed judge situation.
And I don't see any difference between that. And in our judicial lawsuit, judges actually filed motions to come in. And that was made public, although they didn't say anything. Their affidavits and all were public records. And folks, newspapers printed what they had filed in court. I mean, they didn't say anything directly to the papers. But I'll double check on that.
Well, what else would we need to do today? Because it's 4 o'clock.
You're covering the whole county of Washington.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Mike, you didn't know judicial
So those of us that were here today, we'll serve.
Why that letter wasn't sent out to someone in those other towns, like Leland,
There were.
Hollandale.
Oh, they were.
They were. It's hard to get people to travel.
Yeah, they were.
Who you sent them to in October?
Oh, I don't know, though.
Well, we sent it to all the black elected officials in the county. And other people we had on our list called from a variety of, like the Democratic Executive Committee.
So that's we've been talking about all day, elected officials.
Yeah.
There's other people should have had that information. Others,
absolutely.
Community leaders.
Well, that's
Well,
what we need to do.
Well, this is the opportunity now, I think, that we can reach and get those people, because now we got a meeting set. Those of us that were here today are going to be serving as a temporary committee, and we bring those people in for this meeting on the 27th, on Wednesday evening at 6 o'clock. And then, I think those of you that were here need to decide who it will be that will present the information that you have obtained to the rest of the group, at that meeting, and go from there in formally organizing the committee and moving on some of the suggested things that's in your bulletin there that needs to be done.
The information we have in the book, along with my experience, I do that.
Well, we're basically out of it, unless y'all need us to assist you in providing things. So y'all are the committee now.
Yeah. They never asked me, will I do anything or will I go somewhere? They call me and they tell me.
Yes, sir.
Automatically, I know I was involved when I got the letter.
All right. So.
Not bragging on about what I do, just that the people know that, I guess they feel like they know me there.
Sure.
Well, that's what needs to happen. What we're trying to do is not become so involved in the county process that the county organization doesn't develop and grow and the people don't take responsibility for the organizing work. And that can happen. There's a temptation to sort of lay back and say, well, those folks, they're going to do it. They'll come, they'll make the presentation, they'll do the talking, they'll do the work and so on. And we're trying to avoid that happening. And it's worked well so far when people realize that what we're going to do is provide technical assistance and we'll help you get planners and lawyers. But we're not going to, and we'll help talk about organizing work with you and how to do it, but we're not going to do the work. That's got to come from people in the community, because that's the only way it'll grow in a strong way, with a proper foundation. And so that's how we've been approaching it. And it's also the only viable way that we can sort of get the process going in 15 counties at once, without becoming overwhelmed by it.
Right.
Let me ask you this. The supervisors have already gotten planning and development district.
Yeah,
Did they ask any of the justice court judges?
no.
You ought to
They
have
haven't
any
said
input.
anything, period. Little things
Yeah.
seep out from over in Mr. Pryor's office or from the media that
That's
they.
sad.
See, now-
Accountability of black elected
Yeah.
officials.
Last weekend, just to show you how some of the counties are doing, last Saturday, we were in Holmes County. And they formed a temporary committee, set a date to have a meeting. They had their meeting this past week, and out of that meeting, they had representatives to go to the Board of Supervisors, and they went to the Board of Supervisors meeting, and they recommended and requested that certain blacks, they gave them the name of 2 blacks be hired as attorneys, and they gave them the name of 2 people that they wanted to be hired to draw the maps. And they discussed that with the Board of Supervisors. They haven't made a final decision on it, but they have gone through that process and gotten that far in the whole process.
Well, I would think.
The same thing
We
needs to
should
be done
able
here.
to go to 'em, yeah,
Same thing needs
about
to
Monday.
And
I would think the people are well acquainted with this state in general, and especially this Washington County. It seemed like the lady was talking today, and Grace coming in, this is the hardest state for that. I understand what you're saying. But we have tried here in so many areas and don't get no consideration, no help. So it's just a hard job, but you get the job done, but it ain't easy.
And the Washington
Like
County
you
have had some of
said.
the biggest battles, even on the city annexation, the supervisor.
Everything. And you said, well, go to, you ought to be able to go to church and get something done. That's the way she plays you go. Not, you go to the church to relieve it. But I think the way that people should do is go to the members.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah,
But you got
right.
to get to him, you got to get the permission for him to speak.
Yeah.
That's
Well, we're
All
gonna
right.
head on and try and let you know something about it.
Okay,
So,
I'm
you know,
gonna check on the counter.
by Monday, if possible, and
Yeah.
I'll let you know.
Even if you have to look at filing a lawsuit,
She must have couldn't
yeah,
get
you can
Okay.
give me a call. You have to look at filing a lawsuit.
give me one of your cards.
Okay.
If you can keep us informed about
Okay,
what
thank you.
I want to ask you something.
Can you pay? But that's all right. Oh, you're gonna thank
If you can keep us informed of what you're doing, and we'll be delighted to help you, in any way that we can. Okay?